I'm calling on Cressida Dick to resign because I think that we need action to be taken to restore the bond of trust that there should be between women and the police who are supposed to make them safe. We need determined action. We need committed leadership to take those changes through. And Cressida Dick has shown that she is not the person who can lead those changes. So it's not just to make a symbolic point that I think that she should step down. It's to make way for the changes that need to happen and really be driven through so that women can once again have confidence.
The point some people make, though, is that if Cressida Dick resigns, this won't change anything. This is a systemic issue, is it not? This is about misogyny, toxic masculinity, the kind of actions that we know that other police officers have carried out and offences carried out by other police officers. This is a systemic issue. This is not a personal issue for Cressida Dick.
Well, indeed, it is a systemic issue, and she has been in charge of the system. And complaints have been made in the past, for example, by the Centre for Women's Justice. Reports have come out, for example, by the police inspectorate, even as late as after Sarah's killer admitted to killing her. She could have taken some of the actions which would have begun to restore confidence. But to be starting to talk about learning lessons is to completely miss what her job in leadership is. And there are some very, very clear actions which I'm calling for to happen right away, which are absolutely blindingly obvious that need to be taken. And she is not the person to take them through if she thinks that we need to just start learning lessons at this point, and that she's presided over a system where people have said there are problems and she's failed to act.
I want to come to some of the measures that you've suggested in a moment, but if we stick with Dame Cressida Dick for the moment, why now? Why specifically are you calling for her resignation now? Her career has famously a number of misdemeanours and courted controversy way back to Jean-Charles de Menezes.
Because I'm thinking of all the women, and indeed the fathers and the brothers and all the men who are concerned about women, and all the women themselves, looking at those video clips, looking at a police officer using his power of arrest, which he has as an officer of the Metropolitan Police, in order to kidnap and abduct Sarah Everard, using his handcuffs issued by the Metropolitan Police. They have seen that and their confidence is rocked. I mean, Cressida Dick talks about the police being rocked by what's happened. Its public confidence has been rocked to destruction in this. And therefore, we need to have somebody who recognises that this is not just a wrong 'un. That's what she said, a bad 'un. No, she said a bad 'un. This is the occasional bad un. This is not an occasional bad 'un. This is a systemic problem. She has presided over the system. And it's no good her saying the Met is a wonderful organisation full of dedicated people, and this was one bad apple. That is not the sort of person we need. We need somebody who's going to recognise the systems need to change to make sure that this can't happen again.
Let's turn to some of these suggestions you've made in your letter to Priti Patel. It's interesting, you took the very words out of my mouth. You've called them yourself blindingly obvious. And when I was reading them, it kind of beggars belief that these are not already in place. For the benefit of the viewer, I'll read a few. If an allegation of violence against a woman has been made against a serving officer, he must be or she must be suspended. There must be a new rule that immediate suspension of any officer against whom an allegation of violence is made, but conviction or admission of an offence of violence against a woman, against women by an officer must immediately be dismissed from the force. They are blindingly obvious. Why have they not been in place before? Why have politicians like yourself and others not implemented these?
Well, they should have been in place before, and including, if I could say, that colleagues who cover up for a fellow officer, that should be regarded as gross misconduct and they should be dismissed. That when an officer is transferring in from another force, instead of just taking it that he's got no allegations against him, the force where he's coming to work needs to check him again. They need to sort out and improve the vetting and screening procedures for new recruits so that they probe the question of their attitude to male violence to women, whether they use online hard porn, whether they engage in violence during sex. We can't have women looking to police officers who actually are not, as Cressida Dick herself said, there to protect them, be trustworthy and be compassionate. The screening and vetting process for new recruits is not good enough. But also for existing officers, there needs to be a compulsory training for all existing officers so that they can examine their own attitudes about male violence towards women and also how to spot the signs in their colleagues. So if you have a zero tolerance program, which in any other organisation, the idea that somebody would commit an indecent assault and expose themselves and that their colleagues would cover up, I mean, they would all be dismissed. And yet the culture in the police, as it has been, has enabled that to happen. And that does bring a stain not only on those individuals, but all the other good officers who want the police to be such that women can trust them.
While you've been speaking, we've just had a statement come through to us, Harriet Harman, from the Met Police. So I'll just read that, one of the points in it for everyone watching. It says that Wayne Couzens, was a serving and vetted police officer when he joined the Met. He had no criminal convictions or cautions, and he was not subject to any misconduct proceedings during his time at the Met. I mean, for me, straight off the bat, that's striking, given that we know that he was a man known amongst the Metropolitan Police by colleagues as the rapist. Harriet Harman?
Well, when he was working for the Civil Nuclear Constabulary, he was known amongst colleagues as the rapist. When he was in the Kent Constabulary, there were allegations against him. And there were further allegations not long before he abducted, raped and murdered Sarah, that he'd exposed himself. And it really is no good to say, oh, he was vetted. It's no good to defend the processes. The processes have allowed the absolute horrifying tragedy of Sarah Everard to be killed. And this is precisely what the problem is with Cressida Dick. She is going on the defensive. She should go on the front foot to say, I completely understand how awful this is and how this has not only rocked the police, it has rocked the confidence of women in the metropolitan, women in London. And I am going to act on it. And here is all the things that I am going to do. You know, I'm going to have zero tolerance. We're going to have training for all serving officers. We're going to have a new vetting procedure for recruits. One strike and you will be out. Cover up for your colleagues and you will be out. Allegation against you and you will be immediately suspended. Independent investigation by a different force, not by your mates. These are all things which she could be saying. And instead she's saying, well, what is she saying? And nothing that can give anybody any confidence. So, I mean, I've been a member of Parliament for nearly 40 years in London. I've never called for a Metropolitan Commissioner to resign because I want to help people improve our public services, not just say heads must roll. But I really cannot see how Cressida Dick can lead the change that we need.